They don't live in the real world. They live in a world of their own. They see themselves as exceptional, extraordinary, entitled. The narcissist needs to be the center of attention. Anybody else that's getting any attention is a threat. Welcome to Fill in the Blanks. This is going to be a bit different because I'm kind of starting a series here, and I want this to be more of a conversation than a broadcast or what you might typically think of as a podcast. Because I want to talk about some mental disorders, some mental illnesses. I'm talking particularly about a category called personality disorders. And I'm doing this because I get asked about this a lot. I'm going to start by talking about one of those that I get asked about probably more than any others, and I'm talking about narcissism, the narcissistic personality disorder. Yes, it is a disorder, and I suppose that everybody has an ego, so certainly these things all occur on the continuum. But those that I get asked about the most are the narcissistic personality disorder and the borderline personality disorder. So I want to talk to you about what it really means, what we're really talking about when we say narcissism and narcissistic personality disorder. And then I want to talk to you about how to live with, deal with, cope with, recognize, manage, and handle the narcissistic personality disorder. There's more than one type of narcissistic personality disorder, but we're talking about, generally speaking, a pattern of grandiosity in fantasy or behavior, a need for admiration, and a lack of empathy. So let's talk about what I just said. A pattern of grandiosity. What's that mean? Grandiosity, fancy word, but that means that people see themselves in a real exaggerated fashion. I mean, they just think they're hot stuff, right? They're a big deal. Everybody else is second class. Nobody is interesting except them, which is why you see them and hear them talking about themselves all the time. And you're just there to be an audience. You're just there to be manipulated. You're just there to be exploited. You're just there to be used. Now, when we talk about grandiosity, we're talking about in fantasy or behavior. By fantasy, we mean they don't live in the real world. They live in a world of their own. They see themselves as exceptional, extraordinary, entitled, and their behavior will reflect that. They behave as though the rules don't apply to them. They behave as though you don't have rights. They do. They behave as though everything must revolve around them. A lot of people that road rage are narcissists. They get in traffic and they expect that it's just going to open up like the Red Sea. They get on the freeway, they expect all the cars to just pull over to the shoulder and let them go through. These people don't know who they are. They don't know that they have important things to do. And so they get very upset if people don't let them run their own agenda. A need for admiration. These people need to be the center of attention. Look, everybody has a way of being in the world, right? I mean, some people come in to the room like a house of fire. Some people come in like a cool breeze. Some people are happy to just kind of drift in and kind of read the room, see what's going on. Not the narcissist. The narcissist needs to be the center of attention. And anybody else that's getting any attention is a threat. Anybody else that's getting laughs, anybody else that's getting focused on, anybody else that's of interest, we need to get rid of them because all the attention needs to be on the narcissist. They have a really pathological need for admiration. They need people to tell them how smart they are, how interesting they are, how special they are, show them how entitled they are. And if that doesn't happen, they get very upset. They get very frustrated and they can go on the attack. And when we say a lack of empathy, these folks just don't have the ability to stand in somebody else's shoes. Understand that when we're talking about these kind of people, they're very, very difficult to get along with unless you're willing to subordinate your interest, your needs to these people at all times. And if you're not, they're going to put you in your place. To give you a better sense of what I mean, I'm going to play a clip from Dr. Phil where I describe some real life people throughout history as well as some fictional characters that have been profiled in ways consistent with narcissism. Check it out. You've all seen Scarface, right? You remember Tony Montana, the fictional character from the movie Scarface? It was one of the best depictions of an antisocial drug lord who used violence to gain wealth. He was obsessed with himself. His cocaine-fueled paranoia jump-started his downfall. He was a subset of a malignant narcissist, and that's a subset of narcissism. Some narcissists just want all the attention. Some weaponize it, and that's what we call malignant. Adolf Hitler showed traits of paranoia, a huge need for excessive admiration. He exploited others and believed so much in his own superiority that along with a lack of empathy, he managed to kill millions of people. According to FBI profiler and criminal expert Candace DeLong, Chris Watts, we did a lot about Chris Watts, the family annihilator who was sentenced to prison for the murders of his wife Shannon and 2 young daughters. Again, a malignant narcissist. People said, well, why would he not just get a divorce instead of killing his pregnant wife and 2 innocent young daughters? Because he was so narcissistic, he didn't want that baggage. He wanted a fresh start. Narcissists don't read the room. They don't think, how's this going to play out a week from now or a month from now? They only look at it from their point of view. Remember the movie The Devil Wears Prada? Miranda Priestley? A perfect example of a narcissist, obsessed with physical appearance, cold, demanding, expected perfection, intensely critical of her employees if they fell short. Now, stop and ask yourself if you deal with people like this in your life. How often are you going to encounter somebody that is truly a narcissist? There are people that think they're special and they may kind of be show-offs or whatever. A lot of people are that way sometimes. When I'm talking about a narcissistic personality disorder, I'm talking about a consistent pattern of behavior that you'll see over and over again. Not occasionally, not they just have a day where they just kind of think they're all hot stuff. I'm talking about a pattern of behavior across time. Now, these people tend to gaslight you if you try to call them on their behavior. In fact, I always tell people that ask me about it, they say, look, I've put up with all this that I'm going to put up with. So, Doc, I'm just going to call them out. I'm just going to confront them and get in their face and let them know you're not special, you're not unique, you're taking advantage of me, and I'm not putting up with it anymore. So what do you think, Doc? Don't you think I should do that? You know what I always tell people? Don't bother. I say you've got to set up a boundary, and you cannot take the bait, and you cannot be the bait. And let me tell you what I mean by that. These people are going to say things that anybody would find offensive. They're going to violate your rights. And it's not just being assertive. Assertiveness is when someone acts in a way to protect their own rights, but they do it without stepping on anyone else's rights. Aggressiveness is when people assert their rights and they trample all over someone else's rights. That's what a narcissist does. They do it by gaslighting, and I'm going to tell you what I mean by that. If you're dealing with a narcissist, get out your fire extinguisher because you're going to get gaslit. They are going to talk to you in such a way that anything that goes wrong is your fault. and anything that they do is your fault. You're going to hear phrases, I mentioned a few of them before. I didn't say that. I'm not mad. It's not that big a deal. Why are you being so sensitive? Why are you blowing this all out of proportion? What is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? I just want to be happy. I just want to get along. I'm just trying to have a life here. You're making a big deal out of everything. I'm not upset. I wasn't yelling. I'm just passionate. You're the one with the problem. You're the one that's upset. You're the one that's making a big deal here. What's wrong with you? And it all keeps coming back to what's wrong with you. And they're happy to answer that question. You're too sensitive. You're just too sensitive. You don't like it when I'm happy. You don't like it when I'm doing what I need to do. You have to be in control. You're the one that's judging. You're the one that thinks you're better. It's not me. You think you're better than me. Look at you. You're judging me. That's the gaslighting phrases you're going to hear. And if you don't have a boundary, you're going to take that bait and start questioning yourself whether or not, well, maybe it's me. Maybe it's me. But what do I want you to do? I want you to remember this conversation that we're having right now. I told you this was going to be a little different, that I just wanted it to be a conversation. And I want you to remember when this happens, you know what? When I was on my walk and I was listening to Dr. Phil in my earbuds, this is exactly what he was talking about. This person is using the exact ideology that he was talking about. Now, the word choice might be a little bit different, but the sentiment will be the same, and that is, you're the problem, not me. You're too sensitive. You're too touchy. You're too hair-triggered. Whatever their words are going to be, it's going to all come down to, this is your fault. You're creating the problem, not me. If you would just settle down, we would be fine. If you're hearing that, I want you to remember this conversation and say, this is exactly what I was hearing from Dr. Phil. These are exactly the things that we were talking about. Now, to do this, when I say boundaries, you got to put up some fence lines. You've got to say, look, I know who I am. I know what's right. I know what's wrong. You hear sometimes how interrogators will get somebody in a interrogation room and hotbox them. That's what a narcissist will do when they start gaslighting you. An interrogator will get a suspect in a room and they'll just pound on him and pound on him and pound on him until they coerce a confession out of him. And that's what a narcissist will do. They will hotbox you and pound on you and pound on you and pound on you until finally you say, okay, fine, I'm sorry. And that's all they need, is to get you to take one step back. And then they just trample you. And the next time it comes up, they'll say, you know, you apologized for this once. And here you are doing it again. That's why I say you've got to have fence lines, and you have to be willing to walk away. You've got to be willing to turn on your heel and say, enough is enough and too much is too much, and I'm not going to take this browbeating. I'm going to turn around and walk away. Leaves an abusive relationship, not while they're in the relationship, but in the short period of time after they leave their abuser. Now, why is that? Well, because the number one tool of the abuser is isolation, and they love control. And when they lose that control, they panic and they ratchet up all of their control efforts to try to regain that. That's the frustration effect. They get desperate, and desperate people do desperate things. So when you do this with a narcissist, expect they're going to ramp it up. And if you know that in advance, you know what's going to happen, just expect it. It's usually followed by what we call the extinction effect. They ramp it up. That's the frustration effect. But then when it doesn't work, it extinguishes. Because these people do not have confidence. They do not have staying power. And when they see that their best efforts to regain control don't work, then you will see that it extinguishes and the behavior goes away. You just have to say what you're going to do it, expect them to react, but stand your ground. Now, leading up to this, a narcissist is going to make you promises. Oh, you're right. I'll never do it again. I'll never do it again. I'll do better. I'll change what I'm doing. If their lips are moving, they're lying. Seeing is believing. It doesn't matter what they say. It only matters what they do. So you got to be like you were born in the center of Missouri. Show me. Is to act like you're from the show me state. You dealing with them, makes no difference what they say. It matters what they do. You got to turn a deaf ear and just say, show me. If they say, I'm not going to embarrass you in a crowd again, I'm not going to show up late again because I think time is suspended for me because I'm so special and I can travel 15 miles in 1.2 minutes when it takes everybody else 30 minutes, and whatever. They're not going to be rude to your mother when they get over there. They're not going to just dominate the conversation and not let anybody else speak. All the things that you have said, I'm not going to put up with anymore. It doesn't matter what they say. It's what they do. That's what you have to focus on, what they do. It's also very important that you have someone that you can talk to. Surround yourself with people that know you, people that love you, people that can validate you. Because the onslaught you get when you're living with, dealing with, working with, married to, trapped by a narcissist can be overwhelming. These people are relentless. They just don't give it up. And you withstanding that onslaught alone can be very difficult. Give your feelings a voice. You have to go check in with somebody that you know has your best interest at heart. And if you don't have a therapist, if you don't have a pastor or a priest, talk to your best friend, talk to your mother, go to a support group, have somebody so you're not alone. Have somebody to help you reset the dial. So when you get beaten down by these narcissists, whether it's a classical narcissist or a malignant narcissist that's just mean, or a covert narcissist that's just so whiny and passive aggressive, but they dominate everything, or a communal narcissist that's just constantly just telling you how wonderful they are and they just take all of the air out of the room and you're just suffocating to have a normal conversation with an adult. Have somebody that cares about you, somebody you can talk to. And the best way to get what you need is to give away what you need. Be there for somebody else. I'll never forget it. I was interviewing some people once, and this was way back when I was in graduate school. And I was talking to some criminals at the jail. I was talking to some muggers. And I was just asking them, how are you so bold to just walk up to somebody and just hit them in the head and take their money? Aren't you afraid you're going to get punched out or you're going to walk up on the wrong guy? And they said something really interesting to me. They said, no, I'll tell you why. Because they don't think like we do. And when we walk up to them and we say, hey, have you got the time? their reflex is to look down at their watch on their wrist. And that gives us that split second to hit them in the head. And you know why they do that? Because their mind can't go to that dark place where we live. They don't think that this person could actually be asking me that question to get an advantage over me, to get me to look away so they can hit me. They're so naive, they don't think that way. They don't think evil like we do. And it's that 2 or 3 seconds that their healthy mind has to adjust to our dark place that gives us that advantage. And what they were saying is, people are too healthy. Their mind doesn't go to a dark place, and it takes them a while to get there, and it's that gap that lets us in to take advantage. And it's that way sometimes when you're dealing with these personality disorders. You don't recognize what they're doing because your mind just can't conceive it. You can't conceive that somebody would dedicate their life to exploiting other people, that they would lie to you, that they would exploit you, that they would demean you just for entertainment, just to make themselves feel better. You think, why would somebody do that? And the reason you don't get it is because you're too healthy. And while you're stuck in the healthy zone, they sneak up on you. And I'm not trying to get you to be unhealthy. I'm just trying to get you to be aware that there are people out there that are. And if I can heighten your awareness, if I can get you to see them coming or recognize when they're in the room, then you can be on guard and protect yourself and those that you love. Now, I could talk all year about narcissists, things not to do, how to spot them. We can talk more about this, and if that's what you would like, just let me know and we can speak more about it. But I'm going to progress through some of these personality disorders. Borderline personality is very interesting. I get a lot of people asking about that. I'll talk about that soon. And if you have questions, just go to the website, drphilintheblanks.com, and put your questions there, and I'll answer them at the beginning of the next one of these that we talk about. So that's some information on narcissism. We'll talk more. Thanks for spending this time with me. So long.